Today's show brought to you by redcon1.com. That's right. Click the link at the bottom of the podcast app in which you are listening to this on. Check them out. Use promo code T20 Quartermiss. That's right. redcon1.com.
There's nothing special about being American. None of you can define for me what an American is.
I am the nation. I was born on July 4th, 1776, and the Declaration of Independence is my birth certificate. The bloodlines of the world run in my veins because I offered freedom to the oppressed. I am many things and many people. I am the nation. I am 200 million living souls and the ghost of millions who have lived and died for me. I am Nathan Hale and Paul Revere. I stood at Lexington and fired the shot heard round the world. I'm Washington, Jefferson, Patrick Henry. I'm John Paul Jones, the Green Mountain Boys, and Davy Crockett. I'm Lee.
Coming to you from the DTOM Studios in the free state of Florida, sponsored by Mega's Mark Bourbon. This is Don't Tread on Merica. Alrighty, how was everybody doing out there today? I'm back. I'm alive. Alright, so quick story real quick, guys, before we get into things. December 15th, 2025. Today is December 31st, 2025. It's the last day of the year. But on December 15th, just 2 weeks ago, a little more than 2 weeks ago, I was in the middle of doing this particular show that we're going to talk about today, and my computer decided to take a big stinky shit. So, what meant to happen was, it's Christmas time. I really couldn't just go out and buy a new computer. Now, fortunately, with the help from the folks at Hewlett-Packard, they hooked me up with a new computer. It just took a little while to get here, so it's here, and we're recording. We're live. We're going to do it live. Anyway, guys, so sorry for the brief delay, 2 weeks out, but, you know, it is what it is. Not many of us can just go drop $600, $700, $800 on a new computer. I tweeted out that my computer took a big shit in the middle of the show, the beginning of the show, and I was about like, say, fuck it, I'm done. I'm done doing the show. But someone from Hewlett-Packard reached out to me, and here we are. So, pretty good. Pretty cool. But with that being said, I am still trying to figure out the settings because it's a new computer, right? But we'll figure it out. We'll struggle through it together. All right. Guys, a couple things real quick. Thank you. We had a pretty good year this year. Although I haven't been doing as many shows, I understand that. We're going to start a new year. New year, new me, new show. Not really new show, same me. But we're going to format it a little bit different. We're going to do the same old shit. We're still conspiracy theories. And I'm probably going to just do 2 shows a week. Mainly because I just work a lot. And it's really hard to get in here more than twice a week. Now, granted, for the month of December, I did 4. Count them, 4 shows. But nonetheless, we've had some growth. And that's all that really matters. But from now on, guys, I need you to follow the show on social media. Don't Tread on America on Facebook, Instagram, True Social, and the Ticker Talker. Where I was able to do, if you followed on TikTok, I was able to do the 12 drinks of Christmas. So hopefully you learned something there. And actually, I think I only did 11. Anyway, close enough. And also the website is DontTreadonMerica.com. And if you want to email me, you can hit me up, DonQ at DontTreadonMerica.com. But you know what we're going to do? We got to kick it off with a little bit of damn Yankees. A little bit of Ted Nugent and the damn Yankees. Sing along if you know the words. If you don't. But we got a good show for you today. But of course, we got to kick it off right. A little bit of damn Yankees. Don't Tread on America version. Courtesy of one, Ted Theodore Nugent. Let's rock. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Don't Tread on America. Of course, I am your host, Don Q, coming to you live from the heart of freedom, loving America. Folks, if you're new here, this is the show where we pull no punches, expose the deep state shenanigans, and fight for the red, white, and the blue without the globalist spin. Today, we're updating. I'm going to update the show that I was going to do on the 15th because obviously things have happened over the past 2 weeks, but we're going to focus on that. Now, I don't know if you guys can hear this high-pitched shit, but I've really got to figure that shit out. That shit's driving me crazy. I don't know if it's my headphones or what, but we'll see. Anyway, sorry if you can hear it. It is what it is. We're going to have some growing pains with this new computer, I feel. Anyway, back on December 15th, Trump declared that fentanyl and its precursors as a weapon of mass destruction. Yeah, WMDs. And the fresh news breaking as of yesterday, where things are heating up fast. Strikes on Venezuelan soil, escalating tensions, and wild new conspiracy theories swirling. This isn't just about drugs, it's borders, cartels, regimes, and potential wars. We're covering implications for Mexico and Venezuela. And we're going to compare this, what's going on right now, to what happened back in the 90s with Bush's Iraqi WMD lies and the Reagan-Bush Iran-Contra mess back in the 80s. And every conspiracy theory out there. We're going to play some audio clips, and I'm going to read some articles and some Twitter posts. So buckle up. We got a little bit here. We'll probably be here about an hour or so. And I'm probably going to bounce around the place because I'm out of practice doing this, right? So before we get into it, guys, I want you to all make sure also, I don't know if I mentioned the Twitter X machine, DTOM Podcast 1776. Make sure you follow the show there. And also on Rumble, if you want to see the inner workings of the DTOM studio and all the fuckery that goes on in here, follow the show there, DontTreadonMericaTV. On Rumble, follow the show there. Just give me some follows. Follow, man. Come on. And if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, if you could please give the show a rating. And if you want to leave a review, that'd be awesome. Especially if you're leaving a 5-star. Get back to reading those things if you guys would start doing them. All right, we're going to let this ride out here, and then we're going to get to it, okay? All right, so I'm not going to play any music underneath because I don't want to have to keep on switching back and forth to to audio clips and music and turning and stopping and whatever. So let's recap and update everything as of right now. So Trump order labels fentanyl a chemical weapon due to its lethality. 2 milligrams can kill over 100,000. or I'm sorry, 2 milligrams can kill, and over 100,000 deaths U.S. yearly. It ramps up DOJ, state treasury, and now the Department of Defense or Department of War, and Homeland Security for strikes, sanctions, the works. Sea drugs flows are down 94%, but land ports from Mexico are the real entry port. Sounds solid, but peel those layers back. So, I want to play, I think I have it right here. Do I have it right here? No. Do I have it right here? No. Do I have it right here? No. Do I have it right there? No. All right, there we go. I thought I had the damn Trump thing, but apparently I do not. Anyway, so Mexico's implications are still ground zero for fentanyl. The Sinaloa and Jalisco cartels using Chinese precursors. Cartels are being labeled terrorist. Fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction opens the door to strikes on Mexican soil. Bombing labs with drones. Trump's terror threats loom if Mexico slacks, pushing for super border security. But as of December 30th, no strikes reported on Mexico. Focus is elsewhere. Mexico is deploying 10,000 National Guard troops to their borders, but sovereignty clashes could ignite trade wars. Here it is here. Let me play this.
With this historic executive order I will sign today, we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction.
It has been one team, one mission to get 100% operational control of the southern border.
President Trump and this administration is saving thousands of lives every month. Hard stop.
You want to talk about America first, peace through strength and common sense? It all manifests in one basic phrase down there. Border security is national security.
So, the thing that drives me crazy about all of this, before we get into Venezuela, is the WMD moniker put on this. The interesting, I was going to say funny, but the interesting thing about this is I think it was maybe a week prior to this coming out, Chris and I were talking about this very thing prior to him even announcing this. Now, obviously, you can be like, sure, whatever, dude. I promise you this when I tell you that I'm telling you the truth, because this whole Venezuelan thing and Mexico thing has been ramping up. Mexico, whatever, the southern border stuff. But as far as the Venezuelan stuff, it's been really ramping up over the past month. And I had said to Chris, I said, we need to start worrying about this when they label, they had already labeled these cartels as terrorists. And then I said, once they start throwing the weapons of mass destruction around, that's going to give them the green light. Enter December 15th, where he makes that announcement. Then, right now, you have Venezuela, you have Maduro in the crosshairs. The administration claims it's a fentanyl hub, but experts say not so much, mostly cocaine. Over 20 drug boats have been blown up in the Caribbean since September of 25. 80 plus are dead, coke haulers, but not fentanyl. The airspace is closed. Ground ops are rumors right now. And now there's a big update. As of December 29th and 30th of 25, the CIA drone struck a Venezuelan port facility. First U.S. land attack inside Venezuela. Trump says they hit a dock where they loaded, that was used for loading drugs. The WMD label justifies sanctions, freezes, and boots on the ground. And that's the key there, is the boots on the ground aspect. We can sanction these countries till the fucking cows come home. We can freeze their assets. We can freeze their trading abilities. We can go after their oil tankers. We can do all that stuff. And personally, my personal thoughts on us going after these drug running boats and stuff like that, I don't care. Okay, I really don't care. My problem is when they start throwing this fentanyl as a WMD, because most of your fentanyl comes in this country via Mexico, via China through Mexico into the United States. Probably even some through Canada. I mean, the north and the southern borders. More so than coming on those boats. Those boats coming out of Venezuela are mostly cocaine, maybe heroin, I don't know, but I'm not trying to give it justification for them to be able to run their drugs. I mean, this is something we've been dealing with for probably 50 or more years with these countries. And I mean, I live in Florida, and we probably hear about it more so than you guys do in the rest of the country, the rest of the world for that matter, where we're constantly, the Coast Guard is constantly stopping boats in coming upon the shores of Florida, not just Miami, but just random. I mean, you got to figure Florida's one of the longest coastlines in America, probably second to California. I mean, it doesn't seem like it. Florida's a small state. How do you say that? Well, the whole fucking state is basically is surrounded by water. And if you live in Florida, you can understand what I'm about to say. But if you don't live in Florida, it's not sandy beaches from, Pensacola wrapping around all the way up to St. Augustine. It's not like that. It's not just sandy beaches the whole way. There's some of that is wildlife, that is inaccessible to people, to, tourists, but would make perfect ports of entry for these boats to run on. And it's almost impossible for the Coast Guard, the military of any kind, to monitor this situation all, however many thousands of miles it is, 24/7. It's impossible. So if they have satellites over these ports in Venezuela as the boats are leaving, that's the point to this. Now, as far as drone strikes on Venezuelan soil, that's where everything gets a little sketchy. And it's interesting how over the past month, especially the past 2 weeks, as we entered into the Christmas season, how the news faded. And if you turn on the news now, what's the topic of conversation? It's all this crap that's going on in Minnesota with the fraud and Tim Walz and the cover-ups and whatever. And I'm not saying that that's not important. What I'm saying is that it's not as important as this. These are precursors to war. And if Venezuela, if we want to start a world war, we as Americans don't really understand what kind of backing Venezuela has outside of Venezuela. And even in Mexico, but maybe not so much the country of Mexico, but these cartels in Mexico, where these cartels rival small nations' military power. And if this fentanyl is coming from China to Mexico, to these cartels, to do whatever, to come up into America for whatever reason, the only reason you could want to do that is to kill Americans. And you could simply have this conversation. You could be listening to me and say, well, Don, I don't do cocaine. I don't do these things, so I'm not going to have a problem. I'm not going to run across fentanyl. But that's where you're wrong. Because if you recall, over the past 20 plus years, we've had brief hits in this country with anthrax. And anthrax, as bad as it is, isn't as bad as fentanyl. And you could be exposed to fentanyl without you even knowing you're being exposed to fentanyl. And then just a little dose can kill you. And you could have never touched a drug in your life. I'm not saying anything. You smoke marijuana, you do cocaine, you do anything. I'm saying zero, nothing. You just buy something in the grocery store, you touch the box, and oh, by the way, it had fentanyl on it because you didn't see it, or it was a little tiny bit of powder. And you're dead. Now, my problem with striking the land in, I'm sorry, I lost track. Striking the ports in Venezuela is, to Venezuelans, we don't know what they're hearing. So to them, it looks like they're being attacked by America. And of course, the Venezuelan media is going to spin it the way they want to spin it. Same way our media is going to spin it the way we want to spin it. But the fact of the matter is if I'm 52 years old, I've been around and I've seen all these other things happen. And we can see the same things being uttered, by politicians. Like, for example, this is Lindsey Graham here. I'm going to unmute this, and then we're going to play it.
He's a threat to our way of life. He needs to go.
Maduro is an existential threat to the people of the United States.
It is time for Maduro to go.
Initially taking fire from our western.
We're giving them full opportunity to do it the easy way.
I'm actually going to stop this and start it from the beginning. Before I do, I want to talk real quick because it'll start playing as soon as I rewind it. These are politicians, Lindsey Graham, different politicians back in 91, 92, also today. So that's where you're going to hear, God bless
to the people of the United States.
It is time for Maduro to go.
Hold on.
We're giving them full opportunity,
Jesus Christ,
to do it the easy way. And when it doesn't work, we'll do it the hard way.
If we could do things the easy way, that's fine.
I don't know. I swear to God.
Saddam
Life
Hussein's
hates
a
me.
threat to my country.
Life hates me.
He's a threat to our way of life. He needs to go.
Maduro,
All right, we're going to try this
To
again.
my country. He's a threat to our way of life. He
Saddam.
needs
He's
to
talking
go.
about Saddam.
Maduro is
Now
an
he's talking about Maduro.
existential threat to the
Goddamn
people of the
fucking-
United States.
It is time for Maduro to go.
Initially taking fire from our western.
We're giving them full opportunity to do it the easy way. And when it doesn't work, we'll do it the hard way.
If we could do things the easy way, that's fine. And if we have to do it the hard way, that's fine too.
Chemical weapons is a threat to the United States.
Fentanyl poses a chemical weapons threat to the United States.
Al-Qaeda terrorists inside Iraq.
Al-Qaeda of our hemisphere.
We can get rid of Saddam. It could really begin to transform the region.
There's an opportunity to transform the entire region.
Bringing freedom and democracy.
Democracy and freedom can serve as a
Beacon of hope.
Shock and awe.
Shoot behind us.
So, I'm sorry about the confusion there, but that was basically, you had politicians in the early 90s, politicians today, different politicians, like Lindsey Graham, obviously, the same person, talking about Saddam was a threat to American way of life and all this stuff, saying the same thing about Maduro. And then you had different politicians from the 90s, and today, totally different people saying the same thing. And that's where our problems lie. And the key here is, if we're going to label fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction, why are we keying in on Venezuela, where pretty much no fentanyl is coming in from that country? If anything, it's the cocaine coming in from Venezuela. Then they maybe mix it with fentanyl. I don't know. I don't know how all that shit works. But why are we focused on Venezuela? Actuality, we should be focused on Mexico. If you're going to term fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, your focus should be on Mexico. period. Back in 90, or I'm sorry, I say 91, but this was actually, I said 90s. I meant early 2000s was Lindsey Graham. So you had the Twin Towers in 2001. So this was later 2001, early 2002 when all that stuff was being said. Because if you ever listened to the show I did on 9/11 and my thoughts on what actually happened, and if you were alive back then, and if you were an adult and you remember this happening, not just the Twin Towers and all that stuff that happened, but after the fact, how Bush, the whole thing was, we gotta, what was it that he said here? Let me see if I can find it.
Strategy is this: we will fight them over there so we do not have to face them in the United States of America.
You remember that? Got to fight them over there so we don't have to fight them over here. We had to go into Iraq because of weapons of mass destruction, because all this stuff, because of 9/11. When, by all accounts, Iraq had absolutely nothing to do with 9/11. And then we go into Iraq because of this, and what did we find? Nothing. Nothing at all. So we look at the comparisons between Bush's 02 and 03 Iraq weapons of mass destruction claims. Saddam had chemical bio nukes, imminent threats, all tied back to 9/11, which were all bogus intel. There were no stockpiles, which led to an invasion, a regime change, and trillions of dollars lost. Trump's pivoting health crisis to security for a military flex. So the weapons of mass destruction pretext boosts mobilization. So the difference is Bush on possession, Trump on drugs as a weapons of mass destruction. So if you remember in 02, when Bush made these claims, he was talking about chemical weapons, physical weapons that was sold to the American people, that if we didn't fight them over there, that we were going to face another 9/11. And I'm not going to dive all back into the 9/11 shit. Go back, listen to the show. I did it, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. And if you look at it, and the comparisons are eerie. At the time, this country should have had no beef with Iraq. Our beef was settled earlier, 10 years earlier. Yeah, Saddam was still in control, but that was the problem. Our government, didn't like that everything that happened from Desert Storm and all that didn't get him out. And we needed him gone. And we piggybacked, I say we, I'm talking about our government, piggybacked off of the 9/11 tragedy, and we played that against Americans' feelings about what they saw and what happened and what we were told happened at the time. And there's probably still a lot of people that believe exactly what they saw is exactly what happened. Everything they were told, everything they saw is exactly how it happened, and we had to go into Iraq to fix this. When in actuality, if you believe the story of 9/11, and that's what it was, and that Osama bin Laden was responsible for it, then, what was it, 10, 12 years later when Obama was president and they finally allegedly took out Osama bin Laden, okay, done. We got our payback. We took care of the boogeyman. But no one ever asked the question. I mean, I shouldn't say no one ever asked the question. It was never amplified. It was never gone after. Why did we go into Iraq? And then when we didn't find any of these weapons of mass destructions and had already killed Saddam Hussein, why wasn't our president and people in Congress and the Senate who pushed this, why didn't we prosecute those individuals for war crimes? And this is me saying this, okay? This show is Don't Tread on America, I get it. But when I say Don't Tread on America, this has nothing to do with other countries coming after us. This has nothing to do with Venezuela, Iraq, Mexico, fentanyl, crack, cocaine, WMDs, or anything else. This is how our government goes after other countries unjustly just because they don't like who's leading the country. And we could name them off. Muammar Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein. Maduro's on that list. He's going to be next. He's already been offered the opportunity to leave. I think it was a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, around the same time as the WMD claimed that the CIA went into Venezuela and took out, or I say took out, not like that, they physically removed the actual president of Venezuela. I can't recall her name, but she just won the Nobel Peace Prize. She was eradicated out of Venezuela because she won the election, but she's still not in power. Maduro is. All of this is being played to you guys in the media as fentanyl's coming into this country, fentanyl's killing our American people, and Venezuela is responsible for it. And that's not true. If anyone is responsible for it, it's China, and it's the cartels in Mexico. Now, if we can go into Venezuela, drone strike ports, and we can bomb drug running boats, if we can do that, and the world doesn't give a shit, which we don't know if that's the case. I don't know that the United Nations and whoever overseas doesn't have a problem with this. Maybe they do. But if we're being allowed to just be able to do this, then why aren't we doing the same thing to these cartels in Mexico? Why aren't we drone striking these cartels in Mexico? I know it can't be because we're afraid of Mexico, that we're afraid that if we do this, Mexico is going to see it as a precursors to war, and that they're being invaded. But for whatever reason, the government of Mexico is not giving us the green light to be able to do that. But we also don't have the green light to be able to do what we did in Venezuela. So you just can sit back and simply ask yourself the question. Look at what happened in 2002 with Iraq, and look what's going on currently with Venezuela, and simply ask the question, what's the difference? We're being lied to just so we can go in and take out Maduro. Now, I'm not sitting here as a fan of Maduro. I'm not from Venezuela. I've never been to Venezuela, but everything I've heard about Venezuela is a shithole. The healthcare system, the poverty that runs rampant throughout that country, and Maduro lives like a king, but his people are peasants. Does Maduro need to be removed? Yeah. If they've already had an election and he lost, yet he's still in office, well, what's the difference between him and Benjamin Netanyahu or Zelensky? Because, granted, they didn't lose an election and stay in power, but what they did is they suspended elections. And I think Ukraine's going on almost 2 years now that they've suspended the elections. And Israel's probably close to that too. I know it's been over a year that they suspended elections. And the reason those countries suspended elections because they know that their people in their countries, the people of Ukraine and the people of Israel, regardless of what you hear in the media, and this isn't an anti-Semitistic whatever bullshit that someone's going to slap a label on. This is fact. The fact of the matter is the people of those countries don't want Benjamin Netanyahu in power, and they don't want Zelensky in power. Why? Because they feel that those individuals are the reason their countries are being under attack by Russia and Hamas and whoever else, Iran. And I feel like that Benjamin Netanyahu and Volodymyr Zelensky know this, that if they open up elections, that they are going to lose the election. And they want to stay in power because they want to control the narrative of what's going on over there. But we don't talk about that. We focus on Maduro. We don't want to talk about our friends doing shitty things. I guess in the grand scheme of things, you can ask the simple question. What, outside of whatever Maduro's doing in his country by holding his people down, what is he doing wrong that most other countries are doing? Most other countries, whether it's in Europe, in America, Asia. Why do we just pick and choose who we want to go after? Why aren't we going after China? If the fentanyl's coming from China into Mexico, into the United States, why aren't we going to the source? If we're going to drone strike ports in Venezuela because this is where the docks are that they're loading these boats in, then why aren't we drone striking China? I can tell you why. Because that would automatically lead to war. We can pick on these pissant little countries like Venezuela because what are they going to do about it? That's the key. We did the same thing to Iraq because what are they going to do about it? They're not coming over here. Regardless of what Bush said, we have to fight them over there so we don't have to fight them over here. It's bullshit. Iraq wasn't going to load up their naval boats because I don't think they have them. They weren't going to float over here and start a war in America. They weren't going to do that. The whole thing with Iraq was they just wanted to be left alone, essentially. Once they tried to take Kuwait, that was fixed. It was like, whatever. Now, they fought tooth and nail in their country, and the people of that country, for the most part, didn't care for us to be there. Most people, most countries in the Middle East don't want us there because of this type of shit. And this isn't new. This isn't a 2025 thing. This isn't a 2002 thing, because this has been going on with this country, with our government, no matter if it's a Democratic president or a Republican president, for, I don't know, damn near 100 years. You could especially say since the 1950s, for sure. Go back to Korea, then Vietnam, and the list, every 10 years, it just goes on. It's one country. You know, in the 50s, it was Korea. Then we move into Vietnam in the 60s. And then in the 70s, we looked at I guess 70s rolled in, still Vietnam. And then early 80s, we looked at Nicaragua. And then in the 80s, it was about drugs and that type of things. So you had the Reagan-Bush administration, Bush Daddy Bush. The Nicaragua Iran-Contra arms was arms to Iran funded Contras and Sandinistas, bypassing Congress. CIA allegedly enabled Contra coke smuggling, fueling the U.S. crack epidemic. Now, the parallels to that are drug wars, pretext for Latin regime change. Venezuela, like the Sandinistas, the leftist foe. Today's current strikes that are going on in Venezuela echoed those covert ops. And then, you know, we could play this. This is a snippet this is just a rundown of what happened back in the mid-'80s.
It was one of America's most notorious presidential scandals that almost cost Ronald Reagan his presidency. The Iran-Contra affair. In the early 1980s, the U.S. was still in a Cold War with Russia, and anti-communist sentiment was strong. During his presidential campaign, Reagan promised to assist anti-communist insurgencies around the world. For a brief time under Reagan, the CIA trained and assisted groups fighting communist leaders abroad. Reagan was particularly interested in a group called the Contras and their battle in Nicaragua. The Contras were a group battling the Cuban-backed Sandinistas, a communist group who had seized power in 1979. Reagan called the Contras the moral equivalent of our founding fathers. But much of the Contra's funding came from the cocaine trade. Because of this, Congress passed the Boland Amendment, specifically aimed at keeping American money from funding the group. That happened in 1982, shortly after Reagan took office. The amendment restricted the CIA and Department of Defense from using funds to provide military assistance to groups that were trying to overthrow Nicaragua's government, groups like the Contras. This didn't stop Reagan. The president told his national security advisor, Robert McFarlane, to help the Contras anyway, regardless of the cost. McFarlane found opportunity in Iran. In 1985, an Iranian-backed terrorist group held 7 American hostages in Lebanon. Reagan insisted his advisors find a way to bring the hostages home, saying, "I want you to do whatever you have to do to help these people keep body and soul together." So, with permission from Reagan, McFarlane made a deal. The U.S. would give Iran weapons, and Iran would broker the release of the hostages. This happened even though Reagan publicly insisted he would not negotiate with terrorists, and despite the fact that there was a trade embargo with Iran. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. The deal with Iran didn't just secretly secure the release of the hostages in exchange for weapons. There was money involved. While $30 million had been allocated for the weapons, the CIA funneled a portion of that money to the Contras in Nicaragua, the group Reagan supported in their guerrilla fight against the Sandinista government. In 1986, the Lebanese newspaper Al-Shura reported the arms deal, and everything began to unravel. That prompted an investigation by the U.S. Attorney General, who discovered that only $12 million of the $30 million actually went toward weapons for Iran. The rest of the money was sent to the Contras in Nicaragua. The revelations were explosive. Reagan denied the allegations that he had negotiated with terrorists, but Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North came forward and acknowledged that he diverted funds to the Contras. North also said Reagan knew about it. North's testimony would inspire the press and Congress to launch investigations against Reagan for the rest of his presidency. Texas Senator John Tower led the investigation into the scandal. The Tower Commission determined it was Reagan's lack of oversight that allowed Iran-Contra to happen, but did not implicate Reagan directly. It wasn't until another congressional investigation in 1987 that Reagan finally testified. On May 5, 1987, joint hearings were televised investigating the covert arms deal with Iran and the assistance to Nicaragua. The hearings would go on for 41 days. Reagan was never charged, but McFarlane, Oliver North, 4 CIA officers, 5 government contractors, and Reagan's national security advisor, John Poindexter, were all found guilty. Yet, speculation about Reagan's involvement lingered on. Press investigations would go on for years to follow. While Reagan's image suffered a bit, he still left office with one of the highest approval ratings of any president in U.S. history.
So, what did you learn, class? So, conspiracies that are updated as of now. The big one, obviously, I guess before I read on to this real quick, do you understand the connection of how our government works and how they, quote-unquote, fund these color revolutions and these regime changes in different countries? We often wonder in this country how we're such in debt, but constantly budget billions of trillions of dollars every year. And it just baffles me how the majority of Americans in this country can sit here and just say, yeah, we're going to blame Trump. We're going to blame Biden, Obama, Bush, whoever. And a lot of times we make the argument that the president, whoever that person is, doesn't really know that it's the secretaries of state or secretaries of defense or these individuals, bureaucrats throughout Washington that control this. But I believe when it comes down to it, the presidents, whoever they are, know more than what we're being told or what we're being led to believe. And it's a quick blame, way to shift the blame to somebody else. And you know, I've always felt like I was a fan of the Republican Party and whoever that president was. But as I've gotten older and my eyes have opened to what's really going on, is it doesn't matter. When you boil down to this, it doesn't matter who the president is or what party they're from. And whoever that person is that's running for president, and they say whatever they say to get elected, once they're, you know, maybe, deep down inside, they believe what they're telling the American people to get them elected. Maybe they do. And then maybe when they get into office, they're read up on different situations and are convinced somehow or another, whether it's through blackmail or they just don't care, when it comes down to it, these individuals leave with more money in their pocket than they started with. Now you could say, well, Don, when Trump left office the first time, he actually left with less money. Okay, but he's still a billionaire and he's back in there. And he said all these things to get elected and really hasn't done much of anything. You know, his whole thing on his first 4 years was no new wars. We didn't start any, but here we are. So if we look at conspiracy theories, obviously the big one right now is fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction is a false flag for a Venezuelan invasion. Like Iraq was for oil, Venezuela's oil reserves are huge, bigger than Saudi's. And no fentanyl comes from there. It's mainly from China via Mexico. Or maybe from Mexico via China, however you want to break that down. And it's simple. I have this here. I'm gonna mute the video because there's nothing there. It's more about the visual. So I'm gonna play it and then read. So you look at Iraq, weapons of mass destruction. What was that all about? It was about getting Saddam out and getting our hands on the oil fields in Iraq. You look at Venezuela, weapons of mass destruction masqueraded, or drugs, I should say, masqueraded as weapons of mass destruction. And then you look at this, the entire Venezuelan breakdown. They hold 17% of the world's oil reserves, worth $18 trillion. A total of 0% of the fentanyl seized by the U.S. officials originates in Venezuela. 0%. I don't know how much fentanyl has made it into this country. I don't know. Whatever that number is, it doesn't matter because 0% of it has come from Venezuela. So you simply ask the question, what is this about? Trump is starting a war with Venezuela over a drug cartel that doesn't exist to install a right-wing puppet president who will sell the largest known oil reserves on earth to ExxonMobil. And we all need to take this more seriously. This is what it's all about, guys. You look at everything that happened in the Middle East over the past 50 years. Okay? This is all about the stuff that's in the ground. All of these wars that we deal with in modern history, and I'm going to say for the past 50 years, from the 1970s, when we started fucking with the Middle East, to today, where we're fucking with Venezuela. This is about oil. This is about oil reserves, and it's about making American companies and America richer. Now, you could sit here and make the argument, Don, who fucking cares? If we're benefiting from it, then who cares? Okay, I understand that. However, who's being punished for this? Is it fair to the population of Venezuela to have to deal with war on their soil because we want to get out Maduro and we want to gain their oil? That's what this is all about. It's about getting rid of Maduro, whether we kill him or exile him to Russia or wherever he goes. and put in that president, that female president that won, put her back into power under the guise of, we helped you, now we stake a claim to your oil. And that's what this is all about. And if you go further into the Middle East, you go further east through the Middle East into Afghanistan, up into the Ukraine and that area there, and now you're focused on what? It's not necessarily about oil, it's about minerals. It's about mineral rights in these countries. It's about lithium assets. It's about all these different rare earth minerals that we need in this country to continue to sustain a way of life that we are accustomed to. It's not necessarily about the money, it's about the product. And I can sit here and bag on our government for what they're doing to these other countries. But on the same hand, this is kind of an Operation Paperclip type scenario. And what I mean by that is this. Back after World War II, there was a race between Russia and the United States, who at the time were allies. We were friends because we had one common enemy. Not that we should have been friends, because realistically, Stalin was probably as bad, if not worse, than Hitler in the grand scheme of things. Oh, well, Hitler was killing. I don't care. I don't care who Hitler was killing or who Stalin was killing. It's not about who and what their religion was. It's about people being killed, period. Doesn't matter if they're Jewish or Christian or not. It doesn't matter. I don't care. It's about a leader of a country, whoever that person is, killing their own population for whatever reason. Stalin killed way more people in Russia than Hitler killed in Germany. But yet we befriended Russia, and they were an ally of ours during World War II because we had a common enemy in Hitler and subsequently Japan and Italy. And then as soon as the war was over, there was a race to gather the scientists from Germany to help us gain their technology. Now, a lot of people say, oh, it's so we could get into space and da-da-da. That's a show for another day. But it's the same idea. Instead of us garnering scientists for space exploration or rocket technology or whatever you want to use the reason for, this is about oil. It always has been for the past 50 years. All of these situations have been about oil. And we have to get rid of the leader of that country, whether it's Iraq, Iran, Venezuela, Afghanistan. We have to do that in order to gain the rights to what's in their grounds. And we say we'll get rid of that leader, whoever that is. We put in this person, whoever that is, and they're going to help us out. And it's not like America is going to put up, oil drilling situations. It's American companies, Exxon, Chevron, all these different companies, all these oil companies are going to get the rights to this oil and then sell it into America. And the more we do this, isn't it interesting how oil pretty much stays the same? Well, gas is cheaper under Trump than it was under Biden. Okay, but we've talked about this before. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter who the president is as far as that gas price is going to fluctuate. You ever notice how gas, I don't know how it is around the country. I'm just speaking locally. But where I live in Florida, I think gas right now is $2.89. Today's what, Wednesday. I guarantee you by the weekend, gas will be under $2.70. Okay? But come Tuesday next week, it'll be back up to $2.80, $2.90. Every week, it's the same thing. I always make sure that if I need gas, I get gas on Sunday. Because it's usually the cheapest on Sunday than it is past that. And if you don't get it on Sunday, then I try to push it till the following Sunday if I can. And I know it sounds weird, but think about it. Just watch the gas prices. Today's Wednesday, so gas will steadily go down going into the weekend. And then by this time next week, it'll jump back up and then it'll steadily go back down. Why is that? It has nothing to do with Trump being president, Biden being president. This is all about the stock market. The stock market adjusts for oil. And the kicker about it all is oil could stay at the same price, but your gas prices are going to fluctuate one way or the other. Now, let's say that America is successful in exiling or getting rid of Maduro, putting this female right-wing leader into Venezuela, and ExxonMobil and whoever else moves in and gains the access to these oil fields in Venezuela. Will you see a change in your gas prices? Probably not. But you know what? Who will see a change is these companies that get access to it because they're going to get a shit ton of money out of it. The deep state CIA, DIA running drugs, the Iran-Contra coke for ops. So here's a situation in the 80s where we sold this to the American public as a way to stop drugs to come into this country and to get rid of a leader in a country because of the drug operations coming out of that country. But we paid for those operations. How? By running drugs. Now, fentanyl is for the black budget. Is it arming our allies? We hit hitting Venezuelan boosts the Mexican fentanyl market. Why? Because we're focused on what's coming on the water and not what's coming over the border. It's selective outrage. Mexico, which is the real source, gets a pass. Venezuela gets targeted. Mexico's president is Jewish. Is there something there? I don't know. Trump has pardoned traffickers, but blockaded Venezuelan oil. And then you have Trump and China deals. This whole thing originates out of China. But we're pounding Maduro in geopolitics. And then you could ask the question, is fentanyl being allowed to be released throughout the world as a bioweapon for depopulation? And the neocons on Capitol Hill are using the WMD moniker as a prelude to war. And then you can look at different articles like Al Jazeera. Trump signs an order labeling fentanyl weapon of mass destruction. The United States president said he'll sign an executive order. This was on the 15th. In the latest instance of his administration using increasingly militarized language to justify its operations against drug cartels and smugglers. The administration has repeatedly claimed that international drug smuggling groups are not criminal networks bent on profit, but organizations aimed at destabilizing the U.S. There's no doubt that Americans' adversaries are trafficking fentanyl into the United States, in part because they want to kill Americans. Trump said that on Monday. That was on the 15th. That's why today, blah, 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 I already played that clip. So it was not immediately clear if the label would have any practical impact or what bearing it would have on fentanyl legally brought for medical use. The executive order called simply for serious actions from heads of executive agencies to eliminate the threat of illicit fentanyl and its core precursors chemicals to the United States. So we use fentanyl in this country legally in medical situations. So is it something I just thought about? Is this because we're cutting into the pharmaceutical companies' profits? Is that what this is about? And we're just using deaths of people getting a hold of fentanyl as a reason? Like when they say X amount of people are killed every year from fentanyl, is it because of fentanyl that come across the border illegally, or is it just because they were misprescribed? That's something to actually think about. So we have the narco state script. Venezuela's 5% in coke transit, but targeted for oil sanctions. No boots yet, but evil in Venezuela working with Colombia and Bolivia. And then we have militarization addition for profit. This is actually just what I just said. Big pharma vibes ignoring demand. Regime change in Venezuela, obviously. WMD strikes cover for an invasion. Like Cuba Crisis 2.0, cyber attacks on oil are ongoing. Russia and China alliances risk escalation. And it's almost like we're not even worried about that. If Russia and or China have any stakes in this, and I think they do in the sense of the same reason we want what we want. We want the oil from the Middle East, from Venezuela, just as much, and the rare minerals from these areas, just as much as those countries do. Because, I mean, China's population is 4 times what we have. They obviously need the oil too. Will they step in? Maduro has already come out and said that the U.S. is plotting an overthrow. Well, that's pretty obvious. And you just simply ask the question of why, and look at the oil in the country. We're stopping these Venezuelan oil tankers in the ocean from going to wherever they're going. What's happening to those ships? Well, we're taking them. We're taking the oil. Does that make us better, or does that just make us pirates? It'd be one thing if we stopped the ships, made them turn around and go back to Venezuela, but we're not doing that. We're taking those ships. So, in conclusion, we look at fentanyl as now being labeled a weapon of mass destruction. We have cartels in Mexico and in Venezuela being labeled terrorist, a modern-day Al-Qaeda, which we still have Al-Qaeda in the Middle East. So we use those labels on different situations to scare Americans and to supporting what's going on. Is this a master stroke or a slope to the Iran-Iraq-Contra repeat? With Venezuela strikes, the conspiracies will rage. Is it oil, deep state, selective wars? You decide. And the key here, guys, is this. My worry is this. That sooner or later, things are going to come to a head. Now, the fact that we haven't heard China and or Russia talk about this and being involved in this and putting ships of their own over there to stop us from what we're doing tells me that they're probably in on it too. Okay, there's 17 trillion, or what was it, $18 trillion worth of oil over there. Cool, you guys do what you got to do. We want our percentage. We want our cut. We want our big. We won't get involved. You guys do what you got to do. Get rid of Maduro. Putin's already said he can come to Russia. We'll put him in exile. We'll put him with the Syrian president over here in an apartment somewhere. That's what's going on. They're all in on it. We play this big world chess game of we're all enemies and we all hate each other, but deep down inside, when it all comes down to it, they're all part of the same team because they're all trying to get the same fucking prize. And they know China, Russia, America, we all know we don't want to go to war. We don't want to go to a major full-fledged world war. We don't want that because we don't want to have Americans die on American soil. China doesn't want to have Chinese people die on their soil. Russia the same. If we have to take out whoever or whatever in Venezuela to gain that oil, so be it. That's what they're saying. Are my words going to have any change in the matter? No. But what can happen is you guys can understand what is being said because nobody's talking about this. Why? Well, because I mean, granted, I haven't been here for 2 weeks, but it wasn't because I wanted to not be here for 2 weeks. It's because I didn't have a fucking computer. Because I wanted to talk about this 2 weeks ago. But listening to other podcasts who, oh, by the way, are all on Christmas vacation. They won't be back till next year. You watch the news. Oh, they're not talking about it either because we're focused on what's going on in Minnesota. Now, I'm not dismissing what's going on in Minnesota, but me and my wife were talking about this earlier. This has been going on in Minnesota for like 6 years. This started, and they're tracing this all the way back to 2019. How come this wasn't brought up during the election when Tim Walz was running for vice president? Why now? Well, did Doge find it? Maybe. I don't know. But that's all you can see on the news is all this. It's all about this. In the meantime, all this other shit is happening, and it's just a blurb in the news. Why? Why is it that this time of year, the quote-unquote news is slow this time of year? The news isn't slow this time of year. It's just that all your main faces on the national news media are on vacation because it's Christmas and we don't want to work and we're going to take off for 2 weeks. I'm not hating on these individuals for doing that, but isn't it interesting how every year this same thing happens? It's a slow news cycle this time of year. It's always slow because it's the holidays. Well, the holidays don't break for war, and they don't break for crime, and they don't break for school shooting. I mean, they do if school's not in, I guess, but they don't break for mass shootings. They don't break for, different situations. So why don't we hear about this stuff? All of a sudden, there's no crime. There's no conflict worldwide. There's nothing going on. Ask yourself that question when you watch the news. It's just a show. It's just a TV show. They don't worry about the news because there's no ratings in it. No one's watching. Why do we care? I got shopping to do. I got stuff to do. I don't care. I don't know, guys. Well, it's good to be back. Hopefully, there it is. Hopefully you guys are glad to have me back. And we're going to start the new year off right. Today's Wednesday, December 31st. Do another show next year. I'm not going to come back till next year. And by that, I mean probably Friday. Other than that, guys, you have a great day. Make sure to follow the show on social media. Don't Tread on America on Facebook, Instagram, True Social, and the Ticker Tiger. And, of course, on the Twitter X Machine, DTOM Podcast 1776. And on Rumble, Don't Tread on America TV. And if you're not on social media, that's fine. You can go to the website, DontTreadonMerica.com. Follow the show there. And don't forget about the DTOM Store, guys. It's still there. It's still operational. Check it out. If you want to help out a local business, go buy you some swag. I got a t-shirt right here I'm kind of sitting on. You want to check this out? You can get you one of these suckers right here. Look at that. Yeah. Other than that, guys, have a great day. Have a great New Year's. Make sure you're safe tonight. You're not doing too much drinking. I, unfortunately, have to work tomorrow, so I will be going to bed here shortly. I'm going to finish my whiskey, and I'm going to relax. But I will be back on Friday, which will be, the 2nd? And we'll kick off the new year right. We're going to get at least 2 shows a week in. And everything will be great. We're going to continue to climb the charts. We're 36th ranked show in the world. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you again on Friday. Peace.